What is up, guys? Welcome back to CageChat MMA. We are here, of course, to preview UFC Orlando. We are back after a week of absence, of course, or 2 weeks since the last event in the UFC Apex, of course. And we got a fantastic card, a fantastic main event. One of maybe a legend, a future Hall of Famer in Stephen Thompson coming towards the end of his career. And you got Kevin Holland, who miraculously retired a few weeks ago or a couple of months ago after the Hamza Chimaev loss. But of course, I think that was more maybe out of frustration rather than actual, he's still competitively, daring. He's only 30 years of age. And he's a fan's favourite. So he's not at that point in his career where retirement is a factor for him. I don't know if he's financially set. I would imagine not. Although he has been very active in the past 24 months. So he's had a lot of paychecks, but comes with that obviously taxes and fees with trainers and management, etc. So I doubt he's in a financial spot to be able to just retire like that. But obviously Wonderboy, former two-time title challenger, of course against Tyron Woodley, 1 draw and 1 loss on that record with Tyron Woodley, of course, back in the day. Obviously at UFC 205, the first one, and you can see the decline in his recent performances. Of course, he is a fantastic striker, a fantastic karate expert. Got phenomenal kicks, got that weird stance, which still to this day has become quite difficult to sort of come up with a blueprint to defeat. Of course, if the Belal Muhammad's and Gilbert Burns, who have a fantastic grappling background and fantastic takedown offense, and can have that grappling prowess. Wonderboy, you're a brave man if you stand toe to toe with Wonderboy. And by all means, I think that's what Kevin Holland's going to do. Obviously, Kevin Holland himself is predominantly a striker. He enjoys the stand up. He enjoys those flash knockouts, the viral moments, of course. And Kevin Holland, has earned this fight against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, especially, he lost to Hamza Chimaev in very devastating fashion. But let's not forget that fight was made 24 hours prior to that fight taking place, with what happened at UFC 279, with that, the missing weight with Hamza Chimaev, etc. Kevin Holland didn't have to take that fight. He was scheduled to fight Daniel Rodriguez. That fight would have been interesting, well, with Daniel Rodriguez, obviously fighting Jingliang Li. He's thought more recently also, but I can't remember who he thought off the top of my head. My apologies. But obviously, Kevin Holland had that change of opponent. Hamza Chimaev, a top 3, top 4 welterweight in this division, just manhandled him. So this is a good test for him. It's a good sort of come back a couple of steps and test one of the older statesmen in the sport and test a top 6 welterweight. Let's see where you are in this division, because obviously he has bounced around between 185 and 170, and 170 is his home. He looks more naturally, better at 170 and more competitive at 170. Let's not forget. And Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is the perfect opponent for him. Obviously, Wonderboy at the moment is 2-4 in his last 6 losses to Till, although albeit that some fans would question that loss on his record. Obviously, he got knocked out by Anthony Pettis. Bounced back with 2 wins against Vicente Luque and Jeff Neal, and then obviously back-to-back losses more recently against Gilbert Burns and Belal Muhammad. This is his first walkout in 2022. He's not been active this year, so he's left it late to jump back into the octagon, and I think it's going to be a tough test for him. I don't think there's the vintage Wonderboy that turns up and bounces in and out. I don't think that's in him anymore, because just the age he's got on the clock and the miles he's got on the clock. I don't think he's able to produce those stunning, almost points decision wins where you're watching him going, how has he done that? How is he doing this? And why is his opponent not being able to react to what he's doing? He's that good. But I think there's moments of past him. Kevin Holland, 9 years younger than him. He's in the prime of his career. He's still, got 2 or 3 years before he really hits his peak, hopefully. And yes, he had that loss to Hamza Chimaev, but we know Hamza Chimaev's probably a future champion and a future star of this sport. And again, that fight was made in 23 hours notice, so there isn't too much sort of stock that was lost by Kevin Holland. especially without having that prep in that camp. Albeit if he had a full camp, that might have been the same outcome because we know Kevin Holland hasn't got the best takedown defense. He hasn't got the best wrestling capability, but we know he strikes well. We know he strikes hard, and has the ability to finish people. Let's not forget. He has got. He submitted Tim Means in his most recent win back in June. Obviously, he beat Alex Oliveira. He went in that stint. Obviously, the no contest against Kyle Daukaus with an accidental headbutt. The back-to-back losses to Torian Brunson. That's where we saw his limitations at middleweight. Then, obviously, with Hamzat Chimaev, we saw a little bit of his limitations at welterweight. And it's going to be interesting to see what he does tonight. Let's not forget, he did go 5-0 in 2020. He was probably the fighter of the year in 2020. Made a breakout star in 2020 also. And, he really put his name on his map by continuing to step into the octagon and being active. And the UFC like that. UFC like activity. UFC like fighters that, show up on a consistent basis and make a name for themselves. You hear how much Dana sort of supports and rewards that sort of activity level. And I think there's an element of him being rewarded tonight with Wonderboy Thompson. I think there's a bit of, Wonderboy still carries a strong name, a strong brand, and a win over Wonderboy on your resume, even though he's 39 years of age, carries some weight. And obviously a win tonight puts Kevin Holland in the rankings. He's not actually in the rankings at the moment, but a win tonight will put him into the top 6, and then he's in there, to 2023 to build it. Do I think he... No. I don't think he beats a Shavkat Rakhmonov. I don't think he beats maybe a Vicente Luque or anywhere of that nature. Let's have a look at the rankings. In fact, him versus Sean Brady were a good fight, but I think Sean Brady would be a favourite, as I would put with Jeff Neal. I put Jeff Neal a favourite over Kevin Holland. But Stephen Thompson is over the hill, so to speak, and he is, he is someone that you can beat. And I think, unfortunately, Kevin Holland is going to do just that tonight. I think he's going to... some part of me thinks he likes this sort of trolling. He likes this sort of gamesmanship, and I wouldn't be surprised if he takes the first round and shoots him for a takedown or something silly like that. Because everyone's expecting this to be a stand-up fight and a striking battle, and I would not be surprised at all if Kevin Holland comes out in that first round and tries to go for a takedown. I also wouldn't be surprised if he tries some sort of spinning kick in the first 30 seconds and tries to get a walk-off KO, something like that. Kevin Holland's just that guy, and I love Kevin Holland for it. He's entertaining to watch, whether he's winning or losing. And I think he might, I think we see some attempted takedowns from Kevin Holland just for the sake of it, just for the fun of it. But I do think he gets the win tonight. Do I think it goes the distance? Stephen Thompson is not someone who gets finished easily. So Kevin Holland is going to have his work cut out for him. Obviously, he's not been finished since Anthony Pettis. But prior to that, he hadn't been finished all the way back till Johnny Hendricks back in 2016. So he has got a good chin. He has got a fantastic style to protect himself from getting finished. It's more you win on points, or a more sport competitive sort of base that Wonderboy fights off, which is obviously what he came from with karate, and that's his background. And, he has been doing work with karate combat, let's not forget. And I think his future probably lies with karate combat. I think that's his world. I think he's still got a lot to give to the world of karate. And karate combat have done fantastic things. You see GSP on there now, doing broadcasting work with them. And media and karate combat have been fantastic. And have been a level up and something different to this sort of market or world of combat sports we're in. Obviously, you've got the bare knuckle boxing, which I don't really agree with. Well, I'm not a fan of that sort of product at the moment. Obviously, you've got the Slap League coming up, which is an entity by itself. You've got the influencer boxing, and then obviously you've got karate combat. And I think Wonderboy, you can see him competing there. I don't know what his contract is looking at the moment. How many fights he's got in his contract, but I'd imagine he's only got 2 or 3 left, if that. And with the work he's done with the UFC, I wouldn't be so surprised if he gets, permitted to leave that contract, as and when he decides to, or if he retires from the UFC or from MMA, of course. You might get some sort of blessing to be able to go and do work with karate combat on a more competitive basis. But we shall find out. But I do think Kevin Holland gets a win tonight, and it'll be the second time Holland gets a win over America today, with obviously the World Cup taking place earlier. And Yeah, I think Kevin Holland gets it done. I think it is a decision, which unfortunately for us European fight fans is another late night for us. You know, a 12 a.m. start for the prelims almost makes me wish we went back to the Apex. However, the buzz of the crowd in Orlando, um, I'm sure will get us pumped, and it is a fantastic card. Obviously, you've got Rafael dos Anjos versus, of course, Brian Barberena, obviously RDA former lightweight champion, of course. Lost to Rafael Fiziev, of course, in July. So he's bouncing around 170, 155. He wants his last title run, but I think he's making it difficult for himself. And I think the realization that it's not quite going to happen for him is sinking in, especially with that loss to Fiziev. Of course, you know, he's someone. I think we need a Legends League. I think he's a name that we put in there. The Brian Barberenas, the Robbie Lawlers of this world, the Wonderboy Thompsons I put in there, Jorge Masvidal, Tony Ferguson, Conor McGregor now. You know, he's within that sort of ballpark. That, you know, you don't need to give them to the Gamrots of this world, the Fezias of this world, the Shavkats of this world, etc. You don't need to give them those names, but there's plenty of names out there to give him from fights for. You know, I wouldn't be surprised to see a Paddy Pimblett versus RDA within the next 2 years. You know, with the rise of Paddy Pimblett, etc. I don't know if that matchup would. It'd be interesting to see how that matchup would go down, but usually with the UFC trying to build stars and build that sort of traction, they bring in one of the older guys, which sometimes works, sometimes upsets the UFC with the turnout of the fight. If an RDA, let's say, using that example, RDA went out and beat Paddy Pimblett convincingly, obviously UFC lose on that sort of scenario. Although it's a win-win for them, really, because it rebuilds RDA, etc. But really, you know, they want Paddy Pimblett to take that sort of name, put it on their resume, and grow their brand with it. Although Paddy Pimblett doesn't need to do that for himself, because he's a growing and emerging brand himself and within the UFC, and they're certainly taking the UFC by storm. So, you know, there is a real claim for a Legends League in the sport. Obviously, we've seen it, the exhibition stuff in boxing. Again, there's neither here or there. Some I agree with, some I don't agree with. I think it more so how the product is and how the organization represents themselves. There's a lot of cowboy, quote unquote cowboy, sort of organizations within the influence of boxing and that sort of side of things, which I don't enjoy. There's some that are doing it very well, and you know, as long as you're on the side of the doing it very well, like for example, Dana White's Slap League, you know, I'd be more interested in a Dana White's Legends League within MMA. You get the, as we just mentioned, the RDAs, the Robbie Lawlers, the Conor McGregors, the Tony Fergusons, the Jorge Masvidals, the statesmen that are in their later 30s, those that have got a lot of miles on the clock to see them, Wonderboy Thompsons who fight tonight, Clay Guida, Jim Miller. You know, we just seen Frank Edgar. The likes of those, obviously you have it within sort of the divisions within 10 pounds of each other. So you're not cutting too much weight. So if you want to be at 155, 170, you can do it at that weight. If you want to be 145, 135, 125, you can do it within and around that weight. You know, there isn't much weight cutting. You can have catch weight bouts, you can have exhibition bouts on there, so to speak, that doesn't, you know, properly, amend their record or affect their legacy. But let's have Dana White's Legends League. Or in fact, let's just take it away from Dana White and let's do the Legends League and, you know, build these legends up, the Andrei Arlovskis in the heavyweight division, etc., who still want to compete, who still have enough, but don't need to be in there with a Tom Aspinall tonight, Kevin Holland, and fighters that are in their prime and in their peak, and still rising within their career or within the sport. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below with that one. Would you like a Dana White's Legends League or a UFC MMA as a whole Legends League? I think that would be something we could get some enjoyment out of. But back to our co-main event, RDA versus Brian Barberena. Of course, Barberena coming in on a 3-fight win streak. TKO win against Robbie Lawler, split decision against Matt Brown, and obviously a unanimous decision against Darren Weeks. So he's back in a good rich vein of form, and obviously, he is 33 years of age. He's in his prime. Obviously, RDA 38. So again, the elder statesman in this one, although he's had much more of a high ceiling becoming champion, he's had that experience. So it's a real close fight. It's a real interesting fight. Both of them have knockout power. Both of them have the ability to go to war. And it's a really fun co-main event. I think it goes the distance, but it's tough to predict who wins this one. I think both of them, I think it's a 50-50 fight. It could be fight of the night, even, in my opinion. So let us know who you think is going to win that one. For the sake of it, I'll go with let's go with Brian Barberino. He's on the ascendancy. He's on he's got the momentum behind him with the 3-fight win streak. Let's go Brian Barberino by decision. And potentially the next in line for maybe Stephen Thompson or Kevin Holland. I could certainly see that happening. I could imagine him getting a win and calling out the main event, or even RDA calling out the main event. That'd be interesting to see. Matheus Nicolau versus Matt Schnell in the flyweight division, of course. If you're a UK MMA fan or an MMA fan in general, you notice that Mohamed Mokhtar has been hot on the tables in the flyweight division, and I'm sure he'll have his eyes closely on this one. Both of these, very good prospects, contenders. I've seen Mohamed Mokhtar call both of these out, I believe, on numerous occasions. He's called out most of the flyweight division, from Cody Garbrandt up to Alex Perez and Kai Kara-France, etc. So, he's on the hunt to become the youngest UFC champion. And he needs a name and a fighter like Nicolau or Schnell, of course. And, with London or Cardiff, as it's touted to be, 3 months away, I'm sure the winner tonight, or maybe the loser tonight even, would be standing across the octagon from Mohamed Mokhtar next. I'm going to go with, let's see. Obviously, you've got Nicolau, who's on a 5-fight win streak. Of course, lost out against David Dvorak. Considering got wins over Tim Elliott, Manel Cape, Felipe Efren, and Alan Gabriel. So, those who are in Brave in future. But since he's coming to the UFC, 3-0 in the UFC with fantastic wins and fantastic names on his record. Matt Schnell, of course, Sumadadri in his last one. He won that via submission. Prior to that, he'd had 2 losses on the record: Brandon Royval and Rodrigo Bontorin. So he's hit and miss in some of his performances. He's on a 3-3 in his last 6 wins against Jordan Espinoza and Tyson Nam, but obviously lost to Alexandre Pantoja. So I'm going to go with Matheus Nicolau to get the win tonight. I think, again, he's someone to be watching out for. Of course, you've got, well, maybe not, Figueiredo versus Moreno Thor, what's happening with Jim Cross and the fighters at Glory MMA. Obviously, we'll discuss that more on topic probably on Monday with the review, with some of the news that's been taken out from that side of the sport. But of course, you have got the Pantoja of this world, you've got Kai Kara-France of this world. You did have Askar Raskarov, but obviously he's not in a state to be competing at the moment. So yeah, Nicolau a win tonight, and he goes into 23 as a potential title challenger, or someone who's 2 wins away from challenging for the title. Especially, obviously, we know Figueiredo, his days at 125 are numbered. And of course, we can, because Figueiredo and Moreno is an excellent matchup, but we can't be repeating those fights. We need fresh blood in this division. And I'm sure Nicolau will be at the top of that very soon. We go to, of course, the heavyweight fight next. Obviously, Tai Tuivasa against Serghei Pavlovich. Tai Tuivasa coming back off that loss in what was an absolute war with Cyril Gane. Obviously, Cyril Gane a little bit too much tonight, obviously in Paris as well. So in Gane's hometown, of course. And Tai Tuivasa brought the fight to him. He had him hurt in that second round. Dropped him, I believe, in one of the rounds. It might have been the second round, or had him dropped off against, slumped up against the fence, so to speak. But obviously, Cyril Gane, with those body kicks, with those body strikes, just took the wind out of Tai Tuivasa and was too much on the night. But, he's been on an absolute tear. Stefan Struve, Harry Hansack, Greg Hardy, Augusto Saka, and of course Derek Lewis, all finishes. And he was an absolute tear-up. And Serghei Pavlovich is an interesting fight for him, because Serghei Pavlovich is also on a big tear-up at the moment. Wins against Marcelo Gorn, Maurice Green, Samuel Abdurakhimov, and Derek Lewis. All finishes in the first round as well. Let's not forget. So, having money on this going, or not going beyond 5 minutes, this is going to be a first-round massacre from one of these two. Probably going to both meet in the middle. The other can strike a little bit, push one of the others towards the end of the to the cage, and then just tee off some strikes on them. And whoever goes down first will, or whoever stands tallest and the longest will get their hand raised. It's going to be an absolutely incredible fight. Pavlovich is a scary prospect, and it's an interesting fight for Tai Tuivasa to come back to. Of course, he's jumping straight back in. It's been 3 months in Paris. So yeah, it's not like he's taken a lot of time out, but as he jumped back in too quickly, maybe, try and get that loss back. Obviously, his, the very high up in this division still. He's only, maybe 2 or 3 wins away from a UFC title shot, perhaps. Obviously, got the return of Tom Aspinall coming soon. So it's a tough fight. It's a tough fight for him. But, yeah, one of these are going to walk away with $50,000 in their pocket just because of the nature of these two fighting styles. It's going to be a knockout, in my opinion. I'm going to go with Tai Tuivasa to get it done. But again, I wouldn't be shocked if Serghei Pavlovich gets his hand raised either. Both these are absolute animals in the heavyweight division. You got Jack Hermansson, who was supposed to be fighting Derek Brunson, which would have been an interesting fight, of course. You got the sort of grappling prowess of Jack Hermansson against the more grappling sort of American wrestling style of Derek Brunson. Obviously, 2 different sort of styles of wrestling and grappling, but both of them coming together would have been an interesting fight. But of course, Derek Brunson withdrew from that fight. We've now got Jack Hermansson against Roman Dolidze, which of course is an entirely different prospect. Dolidze, of course, 11-1, wins against Theo Hall's, Kyle Daukaus, finishes against both of those in his most recent fights. Jack Hermansson's got a win over Chris Curtis. If you remember, Chris Curtis took that on short notice. He was supposed to fight down Till on that one. So you've got to feel sorry for Jack Hermansson. He's had a lot of fighters cancel on him. He's had 5 fights cancelled within the last 2 years. 6 if you count Chris Weidman as well, since the start of 2020. So, he's not necessarily stood opposite the guy he was scheduled to fight in. So he's had camps preparing for one guy, and he's had to step in there with another one, which has meant he's had indifferent results. Obviously, he lost to Sean Strickland by a split decision, beat Edmund Shabazian, lost to Marvin Vettori. He's on a 3-3 in his last 6. But he's not really put any form together since he beat Jacare Souza. So it's an interesting one for him. I feel sorry for him. It would have been interesting or nice to see him, coming against Derek Brunson, who he's scheduled against. But this is the nature of the sport. And again, he didn't have to say yes to the Roman Dolidze, but similarly, he's going to want to get paid. And it's a tough one. It's a tough one for for Jack Hermansson, because again, Dolidze is more of the striker. Again, he has some good wrestling, I believe. And, he has the power to finish anyone. But, Jack Hermansson wants to stay in that top 10, stay in that top 15, which he's been in, for the past 3 or 4 years now. Maybe even longer than that. He needs to get the victory tonight. And almost do what he did to Chris Curtis to Roman Dolidze. Almost prove too much room, stress Dolidze out, maybe. And just show that there's a gap between the ranked and the unranked in this division. But a good fight nonetheless. Eric Anders against Kyle Daukaus, of course, good fight at 185. Nika Price against Philip Rowe at 170. Again, fantastic fight. Angela Hill against Anu Chakotay at 115. Clay Guida with rocking a new hairstyle now against Scott Holtzman. Michael Johnson against Marty Casey. That's a fantastic fight. Also, Marty Casey. Showing off his wrestling in his more recent appearances in the octagon. Of course, we know him as the ferocious striker he is, the tenacity that he has with spinning strikes, etc. But obviously, that doesn't always win you fights, and the most important thing in the UFC is to win fights. We lost 3 in a row, came back on a 2-fight win streak, and then lost to Rafael Fiziev and Rafael Alves. But obviously, against Borshev and Hadzovic, he became a more pragmatic wrestling style. He showed the development in that side of his game. It'd be interesting to see what he does with Michael Johnson. Again, Michael Johnson is stalwart in this lightweight division. Again, put him in the Legends League as well. He deserves to be in that Legends League with the work he's done. But again, he's 1-6 at the moment, so you'd expect Mark Casey to get the win tonight for sure. Darren Elkins against Jonathan Pierce. Nathan Levy against Gennaro Valdez. Francis Marshall against Marcelo Rojo. And Yasmin Sharugai against Estela Nunes. Opening up the card, that fight should be taking place now. Of course, we did lose Tracy Cortez yesterday due to a medical issue on Cortez's side, so unfortunately we're not going to see Cortez versus Rivas. That would have been a very interesting fight to see. Pat Burns, I've got Kevin Holland. I'm going with Kevin Holland to get the finish. Obviously get your questions in also, but I am going with Kevin Holland to get the finish tonight. Or sorry, not the finish, get the win tonight. I think he goes the distance. But I do think, unfortunately, for Wonderboy, he's a bit over the hill, 39 years of age. He has got a good style, a good sort of base And again, I wouldn't be surprised if he does win because he's got the experience and he's been in there with some of the very best. But I think unfortunately Kevin Holland has a little bit too much power, and will get the win tonight, and probably break a few MMA fans' hearts, and we might see Stephen Thompson maybe enter karate combat in a competitive sense rather than just media and broadcast, so to speak. But yes, I think it's gonna be a good night of fights. Of course, it's good to see the UFC back on the road. The AFX cards are as fun as they were during the pandemic when we had nothing else. They've reached their sort of pinnacle. They've expired now, and we don't get excitement in the Apex anymore. We don't get the cards in the Apex because obviously the UFC's model is to sell tickets and to create events. So when they go on the road, and with the pay-per-view model, especially in the States, they pack out those cards to get that revenue back. Whereas the Apex is more contractual, more a fixed fee because they got the subscription model with ESPN Plus and BT Sport in the UK and their other territories, etc. So recently, probably to recoup some of the finances they lost in 2020 and 2021 with the pandemic, they've really packed out the pay-per-view since returning to travel, and of course packing out the Londons, the Jacksonville's, the Colorados. I think they had this year, Paris also. But obviously next year they're back on the road, probably week in week out, if not maybe 3 of the 4 weeks of the month they'll be on the road, and then maybe one Apex a month. We shall see, maybe for the start of 2023, who knows. But yes, I'm going to leave it there, guys. The fights are kicking off. Again, put your predictions down in the comments down below. You Wonderboy or Kevin Holland. I will be back on Monday for the review, of course, and we'll talk PFL, which happened a couple of weeks ago, of course, or a week ago yesterday. And again, we'll have a word on what's happening with Glory MMA and James Krause. But yes, make sure to drop CageChat MMA a follow across Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Of course, we're on pretty much everywhere now. And yes, enjoy the fights, and I'll see you guys on Monday.